Do we really have socialism for the rich and capitalism for everyone else? The short answer is no, we don't. The phrase may have been first popularized in Michael Harrington's 1962 book, The Other America, in which Harrington cited Charles Abrams, a critic of the use of eminent domain against poor communities and of America's housing failures. Variations of this quote have been stated by everyone from Martin Luther King Jr., Andrew Young, Gore Vidal, and countless others. It's a good example of leftist fire hosing, which simply perpetuates a standard negative misconception of socialism held by many on the left and right. It was originally meant as a joke and irony, a statement exposing the hypocrisy of the elite and the double standards inherent in capitalism. Since socialism has no rich, the phrase socialism for the rich is a contradiction, an impossibility. Another contradiction is the belief that socialism makes everyone equally poor. This is absurd. Socialism has no rich, no poor, or middle class. It's a classless and equal society. At no time in history has any society been equally poor. One difference between capitalism and socialism is that socialism creates equal benefit while capitalism sustains unequal benefit. Since the advent of so-called civilization, all civilized societies have had social hierarchies where the elite benefit more than the rest, whether that elite is in the private or public sectors. But in all societies before civilization, the entire community equally shared in the good times and bad. This didn't make them equally poor, but equally subject to natural fluctuations and disasters. They equally benefited in times of bounty and plenty, and equally suffered in times of famine or drought. And this is where modern socialism differs from those early pre civilized socialist communities. Under capitalism, one failed sector can bring the entire system to ruin, except for the elite who remain financially healthy no matter what. The Great Depression is a perfect example of this. The 1929 American Wall Street crash brought the entire world to ruin, while the global elite stayed wealthy. And international markets stay globally linked to this day, and recessions and economic downturns in one sector or country continue to have a negative effect worldwide. But economic disasters are human made and are brought by capitalists through fear and competition and a desire to retain wealth at the expense of others. With socialism, man-made economic disasters are impossible. Socialist economics isn't driven by money, greed, power, or cutthroat winner-take-all competition. And thanks to modern technology and the proper application of globalization, with socialism, any sector hit by natural disaster is sent immediate aid, cooperation, and sustenance until the disaster subsides and the affected sector can regain its footing. And this aid is given without debt, without interest on any debt, and without expectation of repayment. That's how socialism works, through mutual benefit. It works the exact same way within a community as between communities. It doesn't force conformity where everyone is identical, but protects equal rights to equal benefits so individuals can pursue their own paths in life. And diversity is maintained. Socialism encourages an intelligent citizen with multiple skills. This equal benefit not only allows but encourages the citizenry to pursue a lifetime with a broad range of personal interests at their own discretion and pace, including hobbies, leisure, training, educational, philosophical, spiritual, and religious. This notion that socialism is anti-religion is hogwash. It's anti-religious exploitation, but it rejects all exploitation. It's anti-religious dogma, but it rejects all dogma. It's anti-religious elite, but it rejects all elite. The elite have convinced their followers on the right that socialism produces a malevolent, evil big government. They have convinced their followers on the left socialism produces a benevolent, angelic big government. But both sides are wrong. Socialism doesn't produce big government at all. Capitalism produces one of three outcomes. It produces big business with little government, exemplified in the ancient Greek republics, Renaissance Italy, Holland, and the American Gilded Age, or it produces big government and little or no private sector, exemplified by the ancient Egyptians, the Roman Empire, many monarchies, the Soviet Union, and Red China. Or it results in a symbiosis of both, exemplified by feudal and colonial Europe, fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, the United States, and almost every nation on earth today. Equalism identifies all three outcomes of capitalism as predonomic societies, meaning they've all been predatory, thus fascist. They all produce an authoritarian elite, rigid social hierarchies and bureaucracies, strong militaries, strict police enforcement, and the most recent characteristic, thanks to 20th century technology, the police state. But the first two outcomes are mainly anomalies and mere fluctuations of the third type, the symbiosis capitalism. It's this capitalism that's truly ruled human civilization throughout history. The phrases socialism for the rich and capitalism for everyone else, corporate welfare, and privatized profits and socialized losses all refer to the same realities of capitalism and have nothing to do with socialism whatsoever. What these phrases refer to is elitist privilege, a social, economic, and political structure that functions for the designed benefit of the elite. Fascist laissez-faire capitalists are not as anti-government as they claim. They support strong authoritarian government, often referring to strict enforcement of law and order to implement their policies and enforce their will. They want government to get out of their way, but not out of your way. They desire and use big government to their advantage and to protect their privilege. Those above phrases actually don't refer to socialism at all. They all refer to privilege, and that's the exact opposite of the intent of socialism. And all social privilege is the result of capitalism, which is why socialism rejects identity politics. It tends to favor one group or class over another. It divides people into competing groups, one seeking privilege over another. Capitalism is the economic system of fascism, and fascism uses scapegoatism to create and perpetuate the social divisions and privileges needed to sustain it. That's not to say there are not groups in capitalist society that are more disadvantaged than others. Racial, ethnic, and religious minorities, women, gays, soldiers, labor, pot smokers, the elderly, the disabled, and the poor have, historically speaking, been greatly mistreated in fascist society. But the idea is to erase the inequalities, not create privileges that overcompensate for these inequalities. Our mutual mistreatment under capitalism should unite us, not divide us, in competing with each other for the rights of our specific social group. By concentrating on achieving the equal rights of all people, the mutual protection of individual rights, you achieve the equality required in any free society and avoid the privileges and divisions inherent in capitalist fascist societies. So no, we don't have socialism for the rich. That refers to privilege, and socialism doesn't work that way, but capitalism does. The reality is capitalism relies on a symbiosis of big government and big business. It results in and utilizes big government just as much as big business to enslave, divide, and oppress the people. The elite on the left and right seem to have both agreed to settle on this false conclusion that everything done by business, good or bad, is capitalism. and everything done by government, good or bad, is socialism. Both sides have incorrectly concluded all government assistance or interference is socialism, but this just isn't true. Socialism has nothing to do with authoritarianism or government functions. That's like calling the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. Congress socialist because they both deal with government functions. Government functions and government programs are two different things. Government functions deal mainly with constructing and maintaining a political and social infrastructure. But government programs deal with aid given to those in financial need. And socialism has nothing to do with government programs. Government programs aren't socialism because with socialism, government programs aren't needed. These programs simply give the common, the lower classes, tax dollars to give to the elite. And privatization just removes the middle recipient and gives the elite the tax dollars directly. At most, through privatization, they simply want to replace government rule with corporate rule. But a corporate-run state is still big government. It's just not a democratic government. Capitalism is anti-democratic. There's no common involvement in any decision-making process. With socialism, government programs aren't necessary for anyone's daily survival. Government programs are just another form of social dependence on the elite. Government programs are capitalism's solutions to capitalism's problems, and they always fall short of helping everyone in need, are always underfunded, are always under threat of removal or corruption, and always result in dependence on the elite through government. Government programs are just a means to put taxpayer money into the hands of the elite, making them even richer and society even more dependent on them. And guaranteed loans are the quintessential sham capitalist solution, imposing even more financial hardship on those who are already struggling isn't the solution to their problems. Yet, through scams like the student loan, microloan, and payday loan industries, government is rewarding loan predation throughout the country. And just because a government restricts corporate power doesn't mean it's any less elitist. Under capitalism, the elite benefit regardless of whether the government taxes them or restricts their business profiteering. At no time in history has taxation or government regulation made any rich person poor or made any poor person rich. But less taxation on the rich and less government regulation has certainly made the rich even richer and all the common more poor. Regardless, government programs that aren't accompanied with profit limitations, price controls, and aren't a part of a broader goal to lead society where the programs are no longer needed are just corrupt capitalist scams and have nothing to do with socialism at all. And with socialism, nothing is free. There's no free medical care, free education, free toothpaste, or free anything else. Economically speaking, free is a capitalist concept. The only way something can be free is if it has a price attached to it to begin with. Business does or offers nothing for free. Capitalism doesn't work that way. It would collapse. So even if some business calls something free, they're making money on it one way or another. Since socialism rejects monetary systems and money, nothing can be free. Money and monetary systems are themselves capitalist concepts and serve no purpose but for the elite to keep score and as a restriction on the common. Money doesn't serve as a freedom, but restricts your access to what the elite have easy and instant availability. In other words, money exists to modify and control the behavior of the oppressed. But people tend to cling to that which they're familiar. They will accept a little social change, but only if it's as close as possible to what they're changing from. Generally speaking, people have been conditioned to accept social change only when it's slow, nearly imperceptible, and generational. And it must maintain the social concepts, terminology, and structure to which people have become accustomed. And this is what we really need to change: the complacency of social familiarity, the fear of social change. This is how fire hosing becomes so successful. Not all fire hosing involves intentional lies. Much of it has to do with the simple spreading of already widely accepted misinformation. The left does this with socialism. Socialism has nothing to do with government ownership, control, or directives. That's capitalism, as I already explained. Socialism adheres to the principle that smaller government, the better. It uses government only as an administrative institution and to protect individual freedom and enforce human rights. Not all change is constructive. There is destructive, ridiculous, and unnecessary change, and change that distorts and corrupts reality. We must steer clear from these types of change. People seem confused over which changes are productive and which are undesirable. For instance, they seem to accept and even invite the forced technological changes, slowly but surely, that violate their privacy, cause their addictions, and create their dependence, and implement the police state, but reject the technological changes required to sustain a livable, unpolluted planet and stop climate change. This also is the result of fire hosing. All commercialization and advertising is a form of fire hosing. All fire hosing is intended to confuse and mislead us to accept change when it misdefines reality and is beneficial for the elite, their profits, and control over humanity, and reject change when it's beneficial to us all, society, the planet, and our personal freedom. The elite use fire hosing to make us fear what will free us from them and their total domination over humanity and the planet. In conclusion, there's no such thing as bad, privileged, elitist, or authoritarian socialism. These are all capitalist, fascist systems and concepts, and this is what rules the world. So the next time you hear someone on the left or right claim socialism results in and functions through big government, tell them they're wrong and are believing the elitist lie that defames socialism. All true socialism is democratic. This is the real socialism advocated by equalism. Stop playing this game of divide and conquer the elite have rigged to their advantage. Join the equalism movement and let's set things right and fix this mess the elite have made for us. Resist, refuse, revolt.